Honorable Lante on this matter. The minority, I recall, rejected the nomination of two Supreme Court, or two judges to the Supreme Court. I think Justice Gewu and there was the other one, George Kumsen. But I mean, tables have turned. NDC is in power, and straight we have 7 nominations in the first 4 months.
Well, thank you very much. First, let me say good morning to my colleagues and to you and to all our viewers. And to say on a May Day like this, I sit here with nostalgia, remembering my days when I spent days like this at the Independence Square, running commentary on the celebrations by workers of this country. As a worker at that time, I admire the enthusiasm and the life that workers bring to a day like this, and I miss it. So I salute all Ghanaian workers. On a day like this, let's admire what we have contributed to the development of the country. Coming back to this issue, first let me correct one point. President Mahama never said anywhere that when he becomes president, he will balance. He gave an advice to our lawyers, and he said he's encouraging them to move from the bar to the bench, so that when their time is due, they can also be promoted to the Supreme Court, so that we'll balance the perception that the government was packing the Supreme Court with its apparatchiks. I'm happy one thing that my brother mentioned, the issue of justification for the need for more judges. No one disputed the fact that there was justification for judges. People were interested in the character and the backgrounds of the judges who were being proposed. Look, 7 judges have just been mentioned. From yesterday up to today, I've not heard anywhere a word about any of the 7 judges. In fact, people that I do not expect them to comment are even commenting about someone like Justice Sir Dennis Ajay. And they say it was long overdue that people who were far his genius on the appeals court have become Supreme Court judges. And Justice Dennis Ajay has been one of the best lecturers people have come to admire when it comes to law. And a lot of people have wondered why, up to now, with all the sort of achievements he's made in the law profession, and also at the bench, the sort of judgments is written, a sort of analysis is made on certain judgments, the sort of books he has written, journals he has written, analysis is made in law, advancing the law and the profession itself. People were wondering why Dennis Ajay has still not been elevated to the Supreme Court. So people were happy that finally he's been nominated for the Supreme Court pending the approval of Parliament. And the others, no one has raised an issue, one issue. But you and I know of even committed MPP people who at least said about the nomination of Justice Jao. Even in Parliament, was a no as for this. Because somebody who 4 years before had one party t-shirt, contested as a parliamentary candidate, there's no way you will not expect public sentiments against his nomination. So it is not sometimes about the nomination and the proposed justices, but it's also about the persons involved. 2, let me also say this. Justice Tokonu, no one has a problem with the people. For example, I would say that one of the best people she proposed was Justice Ye Asante. who is the president of the ECOWAS Court and has distinguished himself so well. As a MOBA, I was so proud to have heard his name. He just not a MOBA, but was also my dormitory mate.
Oh, wow.
Yes. We left Infant Spin together in '85. You know, went to the university together. And I've always known him to be very objective, very principled. And I wasn't surprised when he became a judge. Having come from far as a village in Sefiu also. And when he tells his background, how he was able to get to school, how he was able to come all the way from Sefiu also to Sefiu Buaku to Infant Spin was traumatic. The Watonchine he has to sit in. Yeah. You know Watonchine? You were not born at that time. No. You don't know Watonchine?
That's the Bedford, the bone shaker.
Yes. You understand. That's what Collins used to come to Accra. So, if you look at his background, he's somebody who felt that it's only by grace. So he has been very, very objective. People didn't have a problem with the judges. They were looking at the procedure. It was not the responsibility and the mandate of the Chief Justice to make those proposals. It's the Judicial Council. And that is why people like Professor Zahn and the rest raised issues about it. And they felt that she has gone beyond her remit. So these 7 nominees are people who have distinguished themselves. Yesterday I read somewhere that one of them, Lante, has been a wonderful lecturer, and some of his students so proud, so happy. And no one can stand anywhere and say these people have in one way or the other appeared in the political color, appeared on any political platform, have said things that justify their political leanings. So these are the people when you nominate or you propose, it becomes acceptable to all. And I think that is the way we have to build our judicial system. Because one of the key issues is perception about the judiciary. And you and I will agree that constantly in the barometer report, Afro-barometer report, we've seen the integrity and the credibility of the judiciary going down. It's because of the perception people have. Last time we sat here and talked about the conclusions of people like Kendapa himself on the way people perceive the judiciary and the Supreme Court. So we needed to sanitize the system. And that's why I expect that we will have some commendation for President Mahama for being able to choose these people who people will not have any adverse findings or any perceptions about, and rather have the confidence that these people, when they get to the Supreme Court, will be able to advance the cause of justice. Finally, let me say this. I agree. And I think that just as Justice Prempeh wrote, this is a time that all of us, at this time when we're having the constitutional review, to see how we can use the process to propose a ceiling for our Supreme Court. It's been a discussion that been on and off when people find it expedient. But even US has a ceiling. The size of US can never be compared to the size of Ghana. And I think we can have an unlimited number of judges. Sometimes delay in cases is not just about the timing or the period. It's about the diligence of the bench to dispense with justice. It's about the diligence of the bench to make sure that they are up to task with their responsibilities. Because sometimes you see, I have gone through a situation whereby I have a feeling that this case is being unduly delayed. Because some of these cases are just cases that 2-3 sittings a judge should be able to dispense with it, because ordinary person can sit down and know A from B. But then you see justices allowing, counsels to take unnecessary adjournments and give unnecessary excuses that will tend to delay. And then sometimes it's also about some level of partiality. We've seen situations where the bench has been so proactive to certain cases brought before them by the executive when it suits the executive. But then they've dragged their feet and other issues that go against an executive's stand. Let's take, for example, how long did it take the Supreme Court to take a decision on the issue of the LGBTQI law? How long? Everybody was, what is happening here?
Yeah.
It's not the only case. How long did it take the Supreme Court to adjudicate on the issue of ROPA? So sometimes it's the way the Supreme Court itself perceive the expediency of an issue and how they are disposed towards it is what delays. So, well, I think that we could have 100 judges at the Supreme Court if they are not minded to expedite action on cases, it will not move.
Very well.
So the discussions, it's good. We should have these discussions. But I would think that our senior colleagues, our learned ones, and the distinguished Ghanaians on the Constitutional Review Committee should be able to make certain amendments and proposals that will end us, bring it a finality to the issue of how many people we need on the Supreme Court.
Right.
So that as a country, no president will arrogate to themselves, because a very dictatorial president could decide. And let me say this, I'm not saying this to say that President Kufuor was dictatorial. No, I like President Kufuor. But you could see the way he tweaked the system on the Chachi Chikata case, made people perceive that the sole intention of increasing the number, putting people on the bench, was just to be able to have his way and the review of the matter. So we need to prevent the situation whereby I become president and I want a matter settled. So what I want to do is to bring Collins, bring Elvis, who I know sympathize with me and are loyalists to me, so that they will be able to adjudicate a matter that is of interest to me. I think that is, if we can have a finality to the issue of a ceiling, upper ceiling for the Supreme Court, I think it will help all of us.
Very well.